Hey guys, it's Mark from Ace Tutors, and in this video, I'm going to explain the ANOVA hypothesis test. This video will continue my series on hypothesis testing and cover the typical ANOVA test you'd learn in an intro-level stat course, so let's jump right into it. As a reminder, the goal of hypothesis testing is to make a certain conclusion about a large population by using data from a smaller sample. ANOVA tests are just one way to do that when you have certain data and you want to answer a specific question about your population. So when would you use this test type? Well, you would use this type of hypothesis test whenever you have 3 or more groups your population split up into, your data is in the form of a mean, and you want to answer the question, do the population means of these groups differ from each other? Ultimately, this is an extension of what we previously covered in the 1 and 2 sample tests for means that we did before. In the 1 sample test, we had one group and we were testing to see if a single population mean was different than a certain value. In the 2 sample tests, we had 2 groups and we're testing to see if those 2 population means were different from each other. Now in this test type, we have more than 2 groups and we're testing to see if any of these population means are different from one another. Now to solve these types of problems, we're going to use the same process we follow for all hypothesis test problems, the 5 C's, which we first discussed in my video covering the idea of hypothesis testing in general. We are first going to create our hypotheses for a particular problem, then we will check certain necessary conditions are true in order to use this ANOVA test method. Next, we will calculate our test statistic and p-value, compare these to our critical value and alpha value, and finally conclude based on our findings. Alright, let's dive into each of these steps with our first example. Say you own a boutique and you want to get customers to buy more clothes. You run 3 advertisements and want to see if there's a difference in the number of items they bought. After taking simple random samples of 5 customers from each ad group, the observed data is below. Assume the population of each group is approximately normal and the variances are equal. At an alpha value of 0.05, test if there's a difference. Okay, first, let's look at the data that was provided. In the table, each column represents the group of customers who were shown each of the 3 different ads, and each row represents how many items a specific customer from that sample of that group bought. Now let's finish organizing our data in the table by calculating some values that will be useful later in the problem. First, let's calculate the total number of items bought in each group. For example, for ad A, we would just add 2 plus 4 plus 1 plus 5 plus 3 to get 15. Doing the same for the other columns, we would get 20 and 25. Next, let's calculate the mean number of items bought for each group. This would just be the total divided by the sample size of each group, which is 5. So for our columns, we would get 15 divided by 5, 20 divided by 5, and 25 divided by 5, which is just 3, 4, and 5. Lastly, let's calculate what the overall mean was across all the different groups combined. To do that, let's first add up all the items that were bought overall, which was 15 plus 20 plus 25, or 60, and divide that by 15, which is just 4. Okay, now that we have that, let's jump into our 5-step process with creating our null and alternative hypotheses. As always, I like to start with our alternative hypothesis. Our alternative hypothesis, H sub A, is whatever we're testing about the population to see if something's going on. So for our problem, we're testing to see whether our different ads affected the average number of items bought by customers. So we can say our alternative hypothesis is something like at least one mean is different. Then our null hypothesis is always just the opposite of this, which makes our null hypothesis H sub O that all the means are equal. Now that we have our hypotheses, we next need to check our conditions. For an ANOVA test, there are 4 different conditions that need to be satisfied in order for us to be able to use this test type. Essentially, we're trying to make sure that the data we collected is a good representation of the overall population. The first condition we need to meet is that the data we collect is from simple random samples to ensure we picked our data points randomly. The second is that our sampling distributions need to be approximately normal. Usually we satisfy this in one of 2 ways. Either that our sample sizes are greater than 30, so that the sampling distribution is roughly normal according to the central limit theorem, or that the populations themselves are roughly normal. The third condition is that our data points need to be independent from one another within and between groups. For assuming independence within a group, we usually say that the sample sizes have to be less than 10% of the population sizes. And for independence between groups, As long as no data points are shared in multiple groups, this is satisfied. Lastly, the fourth condition we need to meet is that the variances for each of our groups have to be equal to make sure they are all roughly spread out about the same. Going through these for our problem, the question states that you take simple random samples, so that checks off the first condition. Next, our sample sizes are less than 30, so we can't directly say our sampling distribution is normal, but the problem specifically states that our populations are normally distributed, so that checks off the second condition. Next, to prove independence, let's assume the number of people that saw each ad was greater than 50, so that each of our sample sizes were less than 10% of the population sizes, and that each customer was only shown one ad, so that checks off the third condition of independence within and between groups. Lastly, the problem states that the variances of the populations were equal, so that checks off our fourth condition. Okay, now that our conditions are met, we can move on with the problem and calculate the test statistic and p-value. But what do we use for our test statistic for ANOVA tests? Well, the statistic we use is called an F-statistic. But what exactly is an F-statistic? Well, to understand that, let's take a step back and understand what an ANOVA test actually is. So first off, ANOVA stands for Analysis of Variance. And as a reminder, all that a variance is a measure of how spread your data is from your mean. So for these tests, we're analyzing these variances to see how much our data varies from the mean within our different groups and across our different groups. For our example, we want to see how much the average number of items purchased varied between the groups of customers that saw the different ads, and compare that to how much the data varied in general within our specific groups. And that is exactly what the F-statistic gives us. The F-statistic is a fraction that takes the amount that the means vary between each of our different groups and divides that by the amount that the data points vary within our different groups. If our sample means for our different groups varied a lot from one another, while the data within our groups only varied a little, we could be confident that the population means for items purchased would be different for the different ad groups. If, however, our sample means for our different groups varied a lot, but the data within our groups also varied a lot, then we would be less confident that the true population means actually differ across the different ads, because our data was just very spread out and scattered in general. The difference we saw in the sample means could have just been caused by the extra noise and spread in our data. Okay, that's all great, but how do we actually calculate the F-statistic for ANOVA tests? Well, to do that, we're going to set up another table to calculate some values. So let's clean this up a bit and draw out that table. Since we are comparing the variation between groups and within groups, let's label one row between and one row within. Now we need to calculate how much our data varied for each of these rows. To do that, we need to calculate a value called sum of squares. And let's start with the within row. As a reminder, we are trying to find out how much our data points varied within a group. To calculate this sum of squares within, which we will shorten to SSW, we'll take each data point, subtract the group's mean to get how far it is from that mean, square it to get rid of the potential for it to be negative, and then add this up for all of our different data points and groups. If you were to see the formal formula for this, you might see it like this, where k would be the number of groups you have, n sub I would be the sample size of each group, x sub ij would be the data point, and x sub I bar would be the mean for that data point's group. Since this can be confusing, let's work this out together. Starting with our add A group, we would take each data point, subtract the mean for that group of 3, and square it to get these values, and then add all of them up. Then we would do the same for each of our different groups, by subtracting those data points from their group's mean, squaring them, and adding them all together. In the end, when adding up the results for each group, we would get our sum of squares within to be 30. Next, we need to calculate the sum of squares between, which we will shorten to SSB. As a reminder, this is a measure of how much our groups varied between each other. To calculate this, we will take the sample mean for each of our groups, subtract the overall mean for our entire table across all groups, square that, and multiply it by the group's sample size to scale it by the size of that sample. Then we will add all of this up. The formal formula for this value would look like this, where k is again the number of groups, n sub I is the sample size of the group, x sub I bar is the sample mean of that group, and x sub g bar is the grand mean for the entire table. Calculating this for our example, we would plug in the values for each of our groups. For example, the first group's sample size is 5, sample mean is 3, and the grand mean is 4. Doing this for all groups, we would plug in the data, calculate the value for each group, and add all of them up to get a sum of squares between of 10. Alright, I know that was a lot, but bear with me as we're almost done with the major calculations. Now that we have our sum of squares, we unfortunately can't directly compare these values. And that's because these values aren't really on the same level. Each of our sum of squares are just the added up cumulative variation across all of our data points and groups. If you were to change the number of groups or the sample size of each group, the sum of squares values would scale unevenly because it would change how many values you end up adding up in the end. To scale each of these down, we need to take into account the degrees of freedom between groups and within groups. Our degrees of freedom between groups is the number of groups k minus 1. And our degrees of freedom within groups is the overall total sample size n minus the number of groups k. That makes our degrees of freedom between 3 for each of our add groups, minus 1, which is 2. And our degrees of freedom within is 15 for the 5 data points for each of the 3 groups, minus the 3 groups, which is 12. Using these values, we can scale down each of our sum of squares into something called mean squares. To calculate the mean squares, you take your sum of squares and divide it by the degrees of freedom. So our mean squares between, MSB, would be our sum of squares between divided by our degrees of freedom between. This would be 10 divided by 2, which is 5. Then our mean squares within, MSW, would be the mean squares within divided by our degrees of freedom within, which would be 30 divided by 12, which is 2.5. Okay, now that we have each of these values, we can finally calculate our F statistic. The mean squares between gives exactly the amount that the means vary between each of our different groups, and the mean squares within gives us exactly the amount that the data points vary within each group. So our formula for F is ultimately the mean squares between divided by the mean squares within, which is 5 divided by 2.5, or just 2. Now that we finally have our test statistic, we can find the p-value associated with that. To do that, let's first visualize this in our distribution. For these types of problems, since we're using an F statistic, we are going to be using the corresponding F distribution, which generally looks something like this. But one thing to note is that just like our other distributions, the shape of this graph is going to depend on the degrees of freedom. But for these examples, we actually have 2 values for the degrees of freedom. So for our degrees of freedom between of 2 and degrees of freedom within of 12, the F distribution for our problem is going to look more like this. Now when we calculated the F statistic for our problem, we found that to be 2, which is about here in the distribution. And another thing to note is that the F statistic and distribution are always positive because they're calculated by adding up a bunch of squared values. As such, just like the chi-square test, we will almost always be doing a right-tailed test. So to find our p-value, we need to find the area in the distribution from this test statistic to the right tail. This will give us the probability of finding sample means for our groups that were this different from one another if the true population means are actually all equal. To calculate this, we'll use this calculator that's on our website. I'll put a link here and in the description if you want to check it out. Since we have an F statistic and are looking for a p-value, I'll select the F value to p-value button. Then just like we talked about, I'll select the right-tailed type. Next, I'll enter our F value of 2, our degrees of freedom between of 2, and degrees of freedom within of 12 to find that our p-value is about 0.1780. Now that we have our test statistic and p-value, we can compare these to our critical value or alpha value. As a reminder from my previous video, to make this comparison, you can either compare your test statistic to your critical value or your p-value to your alpha value. Since we have our alpha value given in the problem, and we just calculated our p-value, let's compare those two. It works out the same no matter which way you do it. Okay, to compare our p and alpha values, we just need to determine which one is bigger or smaller. With a p-value of 0.1780 and an alpha value of 0.05, the p-value is greater than the alpha value. Okay, great. Now that our comparison is done, we can move on to our last step, conclude. If you recall, there are only 2 conclusions you can make for hypothesis testing problems. We can either reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis, or we can fail to reject the null hypothesis. To know when to make each conclusion, I like to remember the saying, if p is low, reject HO. That means that if our p-value is low, aka lower than our alpha value, we should reject HO, the null hypothesis. If the p-value is greater than the alpha value, we would fail to reject the null hypothesis. For our example, the p-value of 0.1780 was greater than our alpha value of 0.05, so we would fail to reject our null hypothesis. To put this in context of the problem, we could say at a 5% significance level, we fail to reject the null hypothesis and have insufficient evidence to support the claim that the true mean number of items purchased differs among ad groups. Okay, so that's how you do an ANOVA test. If any of those steps or calculations were confusing, don't worry. I'd encourage you to go back and watch each step to really internalize what we did for each of the 5 steps in our process. This will continue to be really important as we follow this 5-step process for every single type of hypothesis testing problem we do. First, we create our hypotheses, then check conditions, then calculate our test statistic and p-value, then compare those values to our critical or alpha value, and finally conclude based on our findings. In future videos, I'll cover many more examples of this and other hypothesis test types. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please hit those like and subscribe buttons to support us making more videos for you. If you didn't, please leave us a comment down below to let us know what we can do better. Thanks again for watching, and remember, you have big dreams. Don't let a class get in the way.